Hello, I'm Philip Stoten for EMSNow. I'm joined by Pam Gordon from Technology Forecasters. We're here in San Diego at Apex. Thanks for stopping by to chat to me.
Pleasure,
really good to see you again. I wanted to talk a little bit about the supply chain first of all. We have spent a lot of time with EMS companies here, but also their suppliers. And there seems to be an issue at that end of the supply chain in terms of right sizing, in terms of having, we work with Zollner, for example, who have a global footprint, same equipment everywhere in the world, and for them, their supply chain has to reflect their footprint. Do you see that further up at the OEM end of things?
Absolutely. We're seeing more OEMs being keenly interested in regional manufacturing strategy. So as you mentioned, Zollner is a great example of where they're the largest indigenous European EMS right now, but you wouldn't know it by visiting an individual factory, say in Milpitas, California, where we are, or in Germany or in Asia, because the plan is to manufacture products close to the OEM's customer. And that's what our OEM clients from startup companies, brand new companies, such as we're meeting with this week, all the way to the biggest, are now interested in regional manufacturing strategy.
Well, that's good to see. I mean, it seems to me, 10 years ago, where we were all rushing out to Asia, that we were going to have a big imbalance, and we'd pay for it, and we have, and it's kind of correcting now, which is good news. But also, in terms of the models, the partnerships they're forming, are we seeing more kind of design relationships? Are we seeing more ODM stuff? Where's the IP at the moment?
Well, we just did a study just this last month about the China EMS only. In other words, electronics manufacturing services in China that are not the ODM model, the original design manufacturing model, but that are only in China. And as you might expect, Phil, the OEMs are preferring the ODM model more and more. And so right now they're head and head, but we do anticipate in our forecast that the ODM model will pursue.
Will push forward.
Yes.
Okay. And then when we look at some of the new regions that people are talking about, a lot of people talking about Brazil, for example, and there's lots in the news with Foxconn spending billions of dollars down there on investing in a supply chain, one would hope, rather than just manufacturing. How does that impact on what's going on globally? Are they unique cases, or do they reflect what's going elsewhere?
Well, Brazil, we would say, is not as ideal for the North American market, certainly for the South American market, indeed. Just like Central and Eastern Europe is perfect, really, for all of Europe and the Middle East. So it's not just about low cost, but it's also being proximal enough to customers that it's quick time to market, responsiveness there. If there's any need for post-sale services such as refurbishment, recycling, you're in region.
And interesting what you say about post-sale aftermarket services, those kind of things. Are we? I guess a few years ago, a lot of the contract manufacturers were talking a story about extending the supply chain, the whole cradle-to-grave thing. Is that really happening, or are we still assembling circuit boards and putting them in boxes?
No, we truly are seeing their successful bridging from cradle to, if you will, cradle back to raw material. Now, it's not as far as we think it will become, as the OEMs realize that they are not as able anymore to support the product at the design or the post-use life. And why not engage the company that made the product for them? It makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, and from a contract manufacturer, I guess that gives them a greater lock-in. But does it make sense to them financially? Is that business that's perhaps less price sensitive than just inserting components?
Absolutely. I mean, just when surface mount technology came out in the 80s, or any new service or technology, the EMS companies have been successful at charging more for it at the beginning. So yes, I think over time the full product lifecycle services, especially out at the two ends, will become more competitive, but now it is a bona fide way to have a little margin. And again, Phil, this is not only for the big established OEMs, but even our startup clients. From the beginning, they're clear. They don't want to roll in that.
Yeah, I think the startup clients are really interesting because they can come at it with IP, with marketing, and just have someone else manage all that stuff that they don't need to focus on. One of the things I also wanted to explore with you is the whole sustainability issue. And I guess that segues in well there, because if you're managing the whole supply chain, you can see the whole supply chain. And when I talk to people about energy saving, about different issues, my concern is sometimes they look at a very small part of the supply chain, maybe the bit they can control, which is perhaps all they can look at. But sometimes saving energy here can cost energy there.
Absolutely.
How do we kind of connect that thought process? Are the contract manufacturers participating in that discussion now?
Not yet. Here's where the OEMs are quite a bit ahead of their EMS suppliers. The OEMs are conducting life cycle analyses, which in the past were these arduous, expensive, year-long processes. But now it can be done in a matter of a few days, where you truly have at the material stage what is the carbon footprint equivalent, at the assembly stage, at the use stage, logistics, and post-life.
Yeah.
So as you say, now you're making a more holistic decision about how you can design a product, process, supply chain, afterlife treatment that indeed is better for saving money, reducing waste, and benefiting the environment.
Okay, I mean that sustainable issue with respect to me, saving money is very important. A lot of people I talk to say this is how you can be sustainable. And I actually said, well, what you need to tell people first is why they should be sustainable. And we can't rely on just the people that think it's a good idea. If we can mobilize the people that think it's a good idea because they'll make more money, then I think we've got a much stronger chance. So the business model seems to be key. Would you agree?
Absolutely. When I wrote Lean and Green, Profit for Your Workplace and the Environment, it was all about how to make it work for the executives whose sole responsibility is shareholder value. I think where we get into trouble with this, Phil, is when companies think too narrowly about regulations. If they're only going to barely make the regulations, they're going to have an expense.
Yeah.
But if they look at it more strategically all throughout their company to reduce waste, efficiency in the supply chain, production, post-life, here are the opportunities for millions of dollars a quarter of savings.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say about the whole kind of the quarterly report, the financial report. To me, it would make sense if there were some other elements in that report, maybe some green credentials, maybe just an energy rating in that report, so we could see some trends. Do you think there's any chance the OEMs will lead that? Because it seems some consumers would like to see that.
Absolutely. One of the things you might be talking about is the B Corporation, the Benefits Corporation, where in the corporate charter, it's not only shareholder value, but also the other societal benefits that you're talking about. And I would love for more and more OEMs to adopt the B Corporation. And I think you're right, Phil, that it would come from the OEMs pressured by their customers.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't expect the EMS and their supplier companies to pioneer in the B Corporation status.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly heard some examples where it kind of comes from both directions. Zollner's an unusual case in that John, who runs the factory here in Milpitas, is very concerned about those issues, and as an engineer, he sees them working very closely together, which is great news. But obviously, others have different pressures. Pam, if people want to access that kind of data and the assistance that you can give them on the supply chain management, but also on the measuring of their environmental impact, how do they go about doing that?
Well, I'd say contact me at pgordon@techforecasters.com or visit our website, techforecasters.com, and I'd be happy to talk with them. Perhaps signing up for our blog, but definitely continuing to read EMSNow.
Yeah, well, we'll make sure we put a link on with the interview, so if people do want to get in touch with you, they can.
Excellent.
In the meantime, thanks for chatting to me,
so
and
much.
good to see you again.
You too.
Take care.
Thank you.